Alright, so this is going to be a relatively quick video today. It's basically just a left hand fingering exercise. Warning in advance, it is not very musical. It's not good at practicing anything musical. It doesn't sound good. You won't enjoy playing it. But it's very, very, very worthwhile doing because it is very good at improving finger independence, finger strength, finger accuracy, and it forces you to have the right left hand position. You have to excuse me, my hands are very dirty because I've just fixed my bike and they're really cold as well. So my playing is going to be a bit sloppy, but I just thought I'd make this video because it's super useful. What you're doing with your right hand is not super important, but I'll explain that first because obviously we need our right hand because we're plucking it, but all I'm doing is a downstroke, then a pluck, then a downstroke and a pluck. It's like single note stuff. It's a drop thumb exercise. So if you've not done much drop thumb, it might be a little bit tricky. You could, honestly, with this exercise, you could just pluck with your finger, then pluck with your thumb. And all it is, I'll tell you what it is in terms of downstrokes and thumb plucks. Downstroke on the high D string, thumb pluck on the B string. And it's just that, one after another, D, B, D, B, D, B. It's not really important, even if you do it really sloppily with your right hand. If you're not very good at drop thumb stuff, it doesn't really matter. It's more about left hand accuracy. So I'll teach you this exercise now, and I'll just play it briefly. So the fret we play it at is actually kind of irrelevant, but what I'll do is I'll tab it out for playing it at the 5th fret, and I'll drop the link in the little description below. But actually, once you get used to the pattern, and there is like a very distinctive pattern to it, you can move it up and down the neck, do whatever you want with it, right? So we're going to do it at the 5th fret. So it's this. And as I said, you can play it anywhere. Across different strings, if you want to. Like that. I've been playing this for ages, so I can, well, when my hands aren't freezing and sore because I got stuck in a bike gear, I can play it relatively fast, but I've never sat there and worked at it, doing it super fast. So first things first, when you're doing this, you cannot do it in this hand position where your thumb is wrapped around the neck. You just can't do it this way. So I've done a video on this previously on like left hand position, how you should be playing, but I call this like the folk or kind of traditional hand position. I call this like the classical hand position because like classical guitarists play like this. We need to be in this hand position, which is like the classical hand position where your thumb is pretty much at the midpoint of the back of the neck there, and it's flat against it, and it's like pointing up like that. God, my thumb is filthy as well. I have washed my hands, but I can't get it off. Like that. And then the hands just kind of do this. And your fingers are kind of they are actually very parallel to the frets, right? So you can see it looks like that. So one bit at a time, right? So once you've got that in place and your fingers are lying flat like this, what you need to remember with this exercise is it is played according to what we call a 1 finger per fret rule. So in this little exercise, this first finger is always playing the 5th fret. It never plays anything that isn't on the 5th fret. It might be at one point on one string and at one point on another string, but it's always the 5th fret. The second finger always plays the 6th, 7th for the third finger, and the little finger always plays the 8th fret. So 5, 6, 7, 8th frets are always like that. And the rule, you'll see the pattern once you've learned it from the tab. In fact, I might have a little bit of tab show up on the screen. Once you've learned it from the tab, you'll realize there is like a distinctive pattern to it, but I'll just kind of explain it one note at a time. So first we're going to do a downstroke on the 5th fret of the D string, like that. And your thumb wants to be resting. When you do that strike, thumb rests on the B string. Use your first finger there, and then you pluck that B string on the 7th fret of the B string. Yeah, so it'll sound like that. So 1, 2, so that's 5th fret, 7th fret. One of which is on the D string, and the next one is on the B string. Apologies if this is going very slow and if it feels a bit laborious, but it's a tricky exercise, so it's useful. So 5th fret, D string, 7th fret, B string, with a downstroke and then a pluck. Apologies, I'll just be a second while I let my cat out of the room. I try not to take it personally when he runs away from my banjo playing, but I think it is personal. Anyway, once you've done that, and it's very important that you're in this hand position, that you use your first finger and then your third finger, right? Then we go to the 6th fret of the D string with your second finger, and then you pluck the 8th fret of the B string with your little finger. So the first 4 notes so far, and these will be all on the screen, is that. Once you got this far, I mean, if you're relatively new to banjo and you're not used to using all your fingers and like being in that position and even playing that high up the neck, just getting those down at first, especially if you're not used to drop them either, it might take a while just getting used to that in and of itself because it is a little bit tricky. You can just work on those 4 notes a little bit. I've been playing this for literally like 15 years. I've never sat down and just played it non-stop for like an hour or something like that. I've just played it every once in a while, and over 15 years it got really good. As I said at the start, it's not very musical, so it's not something you want to be spending the most time on, but doing it a little bit, just learning it in the first place, and then just doing it maybe 10 seconds every time you pick up the instrument is going to do wonders for you. And it is more than sufficient, right? So those are the first 4 notes. We've got this. If you struggle with the drop thumb thing, you could just go like finger thumb with just plucking it, because the clawhammer element to it is unimportant. I teach guitar as well, and I teach bass, and I teach this exercise in much the same form, whether someone uses a plectrum or whether they're finger picking or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. The exercise is the exercise. It's more about the left hand than the right hand. So yeah, that's all it is really. It's just those 4 notes so far. The entire pattern though is 8 notes. So what we need to do is learn the next 4 notes. So now we go the 3rd finger on the 7th fret of the D string, hit that, and then we pluck the 5th fret of the B string. And then the final 2 notes, strike down on the 8th fret of the D string, and then you pluck the 6th fret of the B string. And then that really is it. That's it. One rule I forgot to kind of tell you for this little exercise that is actually super important is that only one finger should be on the frets at the same time. So don't get these 2 fingers on the frets at the same time and then do this. And then we don't want that. When you play a note, that should be the only finger on the fret. And when you play the next note, it should also be the only finger that's on the fret. So never two notes fretted at once, because they'll bleed into each other. And it's also part of what the exercise is about. It's about distinct notes. Once you've got it down, well, take a while getting it down, right? Take your time, don't rush it. Make sure that you got the left hand right. Make sure you're using the right fingers. You need to use the right fingers. You need to be playing just 1 note at a time. Just do it occasionally, once in a while. You don't have to work on getting it fast. You don't have to work on anything at all with it, really. It's really good. For loads of folk tunes and old-timey tunes that you're going to play, it's just not useful, really. This is not the most useful thing in the world because it's not necessary. Most of those kind of things, you're up here in this kind of hand position, and it's not going to do much good for you. But once you start playing slightly tricky things, like it might be Irish folk tunes, or it could be anything. You can do anything on Clawhammer these days. It's going to be super, super useful because it means your fingers can independently act, and it really forces you to stay in this hand position. Once you get it, as I said, you can just shift everything up a fret as long as you keep this kind of general pattern. You can move it down the string. You can do whatever you want with it, really. You can do it with a string missing in the middle, if you know what I mean. So that was across the D and the G strings. You can do what you want with it, really. But as I said, not super musical. It's something that none of my students really enjoy doing it. But once they get it down, I think they do all mostly see the benefit of it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. In a way, it's relatively simple. There's 8 notes to it. Really, the difficult part is you learning it. I didn't even tell you what the name of the exercise is. People call it the spider because your hands kind of move across the neck like a spider. So people call it the spider. From what I know, it originated as a kind of like 80s shreddy kind of metal guitar exercise. I stole it from my little brother who used to play that kind of thing, and now is much more of a kind of bluegrass shreddy guitar player. But yeah, the spider exercise. I didn't even give you the name of it. The name is irrelevant in a way. Yeah, just give it a little go. Take your time with it, as with anything, and get it learnt. And then you can just literally 10 seconds every time you pick up the banjo, and yeah, it'll be great. Long term, the differences it will make to your technique are huge. Good luck and have fun.